for Social Change program at the Talim University. Now I'm with my friend. We're going to discuss about school and university partnership with the example of Future School project. So please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Oit. So I work in this program called Tulevikkokool, or in English, Future School. And what I do myself there is I'm actually a coach for the schools in our program and cooperating with the university and the school. In that cooperation, we try to make changes happen in the school itself.
Okay, can you tell me about the project, about the Future School? What is this again in Estonian? Can you teach me that?
In Estonian, it's Tulevikkokool.
Tulevikkool.
Yeah, pretty much.
Tulevikkool. Okay, I think I can say that. Can you explain me what is that?
So in Future School program, we essentially select some schools who are interested in implementing some sort of change in their regular learning process.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever, either it's in the classroom or outside the classroom, but kind of a change that's affecting the students themselves. And in cooperation with the university and the school, we kind of go through this year-long process of analyzing, okay, so we kind of see or we sense this one issue, but what's really behind it? And kind of analyzing, going through all this kind of thorough thought process of what we actually want to change. And then in cooperation, we start implementing this change. And the main focus of Future School itself is that focus on this change process and helping the school themselves design that change that they actually want to make happen. And the goal eventually is that the schools would be able to kind of look back at this process that we're having with them right now, and in the future implement changes on their own more independently. And the goal again is that there's sustainable change in the school.
And who started? Like how the school can feel like I need changes, because it's something that's difficult to, like when you already did something for years and you always feel like it's okay, we did something right, we are doing something right. So how the need of changes happened? Like how?
So for us, it's actually really important that before we admit any school to the program, we apply and kind of make it clear what sort of change they want to see. And we actually also look at this proposed change that they come with, and we actually go back into the school documents, so kind of development plans for the schools and whatnot, to kind of see, well, is this sort of a new idea that they just sort of came up with and feel like, oh, we want to do this because it's trendy, or is it something they've been actually pursuing for years? And if we see that this is actually something they've set as a goal for themselves and they've been pursuing and working towards this for a while, and they're just sort of stuck, then we know much better that, okay, there's at least at some level there's an understanding in the school that this change is necessary. So hopefully also the teachers themselves feel that this change is necessary, and that kind of is basically the groundwork for any change to happen. You need to feel that it's necessary. That's why we also kind of don't come in with these ready-made solutions. We just offer the process. In that sense, the school itself is in the process of designing the solution that they want. From the university side, we just offer the expertise they need and kind of help guide the process there.
So that's the key, I guess, right? Like the school itself will need to define the solution. They need to define what kind of future that they want to achieve, and the university facilitate that process.
Yes, so especially our team is focused on facilitating the process, and part of that again is also is that we, when the school has identified, okay, this is really the thing that we want to work on. This is the thing we need to change to achieve the goal we had beforehand, then we also kind of look through the university and see, okay, who is an expert on this field? Who can counsel the school in this issue? So, because as we kind of offer this help on the change process, we also want to offer the school the competence needed to implement this change. These two things need to go hand in hand. So if we only offer the competencies but don't offer the process, then what we generally have in the Estonian education system is that there are a lot of trainings, but very little actual long-term implementation, especially not systemic. So we want to systematically implement this knowledge gained from the experts. So it is this kind of, in some senses, we view it even as a three-way kind of cooperation. That there's the Future School team that helps facilitate the process. Yeah. There's the school team that, in cooperation with us, is implementing the process and designing their own solutions. Yeah. But there's also the expert side that offer the know-how and help design those school-specific solutions.
It's very interesting to see building two teams, one in the university and also the school. When you see, I'm interested what you're saying about the training is not really having a long-term impact for teachers or for the schools, because that's something that I also read in many journals, that trainings, it cannot be standalone. So how to make sure what the Future School project did for make sure sustaining the impact from the training?
So to basically how we would approach this, how we would approach this so far, is that first off, again, the need has to be there. Yeah. And people involved need to understand this need and need to really want to have this change. Then on the school side, we have this sort of an implementation team. This team is usually about 6 people. In every school in this team, there is either a principal or the head teacher or both. So the top level of management in the school is intimately involved in the project, and often are the people leading the project. Yeah. And then there are some 3 or more teachers who are kind of designing the teacher side, bringing in that experience, bringing that know-how. And all together, they kind of guide this process all throughout the year. And even if the training might be for the all the teachers in the school, depending on the school, of course. So in some schools, it's a smaller circle that's kind of building out and out and out. And one of the keys really is that it's a mutual effort. If you try to implement something alone, you kind of are going to get stuck in your bubble where you see your own kind of failures, you don't get through some obstacles, even though maybe discussing with someone who's trying the same thing, together you can work through that obstacle, but alone you get stuck. So this cooperation is really, really fundamental. And kind of having this sustained effort throughout the year and people holding you accountable. Your peers trying to do the same thing, and you with your peers holding each other accountable is also really beneficial to make sure that we manage to get through these challenges.
Yeah, so it's very important to create a cooperation in order to get support system from each other.
Absolutely.
So, how long you've been doing the school project? How many schools under this program?
So currently there are 5 schools.
5 schools.
So it's basically we're in our sort of like 2nd year. Okay. And we kind of a little jokingly maybe even we're kind of piloting the methodology every year because we are changing it so much, but right now we're kind of trying to really narrow it down. It's always going to be evolving, but we want to kind of get the majority of things very clear so that we can support it better for the schools that come afterwards, and also that we can implement it better in the future. I myself have actually been in the program since February, so that's 10 months. I myself then work directly with one single school.
Okay.
So regularly visiting the school, talking with the school head, talking with the team, sometimes also talking with all the teachers and kind of having discussions there. And largely kind of helping them through the process, helping them reflect through everything, and just keeping like an eye and kind of gauging how the progress is going.
So from that time, what kind of changes that you have seen?
So it's actually very, very school specific, because it really kind of, as again, every school has their own change that they want to implement, and it sort of fits. They have to design it to their own school climate, and there's a lot of sort of development of also leadership skills of principals in the process, because it's an opportunity for them to reflect on how something that they do is actually affecting implementation of the change. How is it affecting their colleagues? How is everyone involved? So leaders often see maybe some unexpected resistance, and this kind of sometimes opens their eyes, like, oh, I thought this would this thing, it seems so clear to me, and I thought this would have been very easy to kind of for my teachers to digest, but it's actually much more difficult, and this kind of having to go through this communication all the time, like all the time, we need to have this constant communication, honest, clear communication of what we're planning, why we're doing this, how this will actually look like in your daily work. That's something that leaders are discovering that's really important.
So if any other country or any other institution would like to implement a similar project, what kind of insight that you can share to them, like either value or tips or strategy?
So I think a little bit what we're kind of seeing as well is that it's really hard to make this kind of boxed product that you can ship to every school and just say, do this and you will have this effect. We are, in some sense, we are also trying to take things that we do in the Future School project and do a little bit something similar, where we can offer this more ready-made solution for schools. But it's a huge challenge, because this kind of inside initiative from the school is really important, and so kind of this tailor-made solution, which is of course time-consuming, expensive, almost very difficult to scale. It is often very necessary, and so I'm not yet sure if and how we'll manage to make this more scalable. I mean, we would really love to, but I think gotta take, especially first steps need to be taken in this very personal, very tailor-made approach, because in the Estonian context, we can't kind of really take one school's experience and apply it to another school. Much less can we take an Estonian school's experience and apply to a school in any other country. So it is a lot about, learn from best practices, see what others do, and then adjust it to what you need.
Yeah, there's no template, so there's no generalization. You need to very tailor-made on seeing the school. Each school, even in the same Tallinn, schools have a very different characteristic. Final question. So we've been talking about the benefit that school have by having this program for themselves or for the personnel in that school, but what's the benefit for the university itself? How do you see that?
So the benefit for the university definitely is what the research benefit. University people love research things.
Yeah.
And the Future School program also itself is very evidence-based. So our schools, the schools in our program are by now actually very used to the expectation that we want evidence with things. So we kind of think about how do we make sure we measure what change we're applying. And this also works really well with people in the university, researchers in the university. So if someone is an expert in the field of, taking a very direct example, study skills, and they want to test their program out with some schools, in cooperation, they can take that expert's work and sort of maybe with some adjustments, apply it in school, and the expert can help in measuring costs and everything. And they can see, oh, it has this sort of an effect, and it is in that particular case, for instance, the expert themselves said that they've been working in this field for a very long time, and they've never had such a successful cooperation with a school in applying what is needed. And I think a huge part of that is that the school, by that point in time, the school has really understood what they want to achieve. There's this understanding of what we need to move towards, and they're much more open to having this expert come in and kind of discuss with them, well, what this could look like. And and we ourselves, again, are measuring constantly about how is the Future School program helping the schools, what's the effect. So I know oftentimes we also have to kind of hold ourselves back a bit, because there are more people that want to measure things than there is time for the schools to fill out every form or accommodate every sort of observation or whatnot. So we do try to make sure that we don't go overboard, because schools have other things to do as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Can you tell me a bit about the evidence-based? What is that?
So
you mentioned earlier.
Yes. So that's actually a huge factor for us. Partially because we're a university, and to keep ourselves intellectually honest, we don't want to implement changes that just feel good, but we want to be able to see, okay, we set this as our goal. Either we want to improve student motivation, for instance, so we're going to say, okay, we know these things about motivation, and we know that these kind of measurements are a good gauge of what's the motivation, student motivation in school like. And we actually design measurement principles. Sometimes we use external, previously existing measurements to kind of give ourselves some sort of a benchmark or something we want to move towards. And we also kind of, in the process, we're actually also doing action research to make sure, we're not just, we started in September, for instance, and we finish in May, and we only measure at those junctions, and maybe we did work for a year that has no effect. So we're also involving action research to make sure that we're continuously trying to move towards this, and we're developing ourselves further also in the process. And this again, this is rather uncommon in education, unfortunately, because education tends to be this based on this feeling of this felt right, this felt good, it seems like everyone learned. But as we know,
what's the proof?
Yeah, especially if we think learning is involved a lot with psychology.
Yeah. And
we know that in psychology, and especially in the learning sphere, there are so many things that feel intuitively correct but are not. So we want to kind of move away from this intuition-based change to evidence-based change.
Yeah. So I think he learned. I think my students learned from this is the proof that my student learned this.
Yeah.
Great. for being with us here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. And thank you very much for watching, and see you in other conversation. Bye.
Bye.